from the News Channel 5 Network. This is OpenLine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OpenLine. I'm Carrie Sharp. Thank you for being with us. I'd like to introduce you to our guest tonight. His name is Albert Bender. He has been with us. If you watch the news side of News Channel 5, you might have seen him recently. And Albert, thank you so much for being a part of this show tonight.
My pleasure.
November is Native American Heritage Month. You are with the Cherokee Nation, and we're going to talk about the history and current issues and a little bit of everything in between. But of course, this is OpenLine. If you would like to be a part of this conversation, we would love to have you. The number is on the bottom of the screen. Go ahead, give us a call, 615-737-PLUS. Albert, again, thank you and welcome for coming. As we were just talking right moments before the show, you brought up a really interesting topic when I said Native American, and you were talking about it. You said, you know, really, I think I would prefer to call an indigenous person or indigenous activist. Tell me about the difference there.
Well, when you use the term indigenous, that takes in a whole plethora of people from around the world. And when you talk about, again, using the term indigenous, for Native people in this country, we believe in reaching out to all indigenous people around the world, and the term indigenous brings that into focus as opposed to just be saying Native American or American Indian. And I think that the term indigenous is becoming more and more popularized and more in vogue than Native American or American Indian. And I was in fact at a conference this past week in which a Native American representative spoke about the use of the term Native American as opposed to indigenous, and that particular spokesperson also leaned toward the use of the term indigenous as opposed to Native American.
But even for you, said you sometimes it creeps into your own speech.
Yeah, it creeps into my vernacular even more so than I want it to at times, because I'll use the term Native American and then I'll catch myself saying, I meant to say indigenous.
Well, I hope you'll give me some grace in this. I'm going to do my best to use what you prefer tonight, as it should be, right?
Oh, thank you.
But this is Native American Heritage Month, as it is recognized. And there is some irony in that, because November is often, you know, I mean, we think of it as Thanksgiving month, right?
Yes. And the irony is that for the majority of Native American people, we are opposed to the idea of Thanksgiving, because to us it's a mythical holiday about something that never did really happen. And in fact, history bears out the fact that the first Thanksgiving, the very first Thanksgiving celebrated by a European colonist, was in 1637, and this was a Thanksgiving not brought about by a coming together on friendly terms of indigenous people and European colonists, but it was a celebration by Governor Winthrop in New England of the massacre of several hundred Pequot men, women, and children in what's called the Battle of the Mystic Fort. And so to us, that was a very tragic event, and the whole idea of Native people and colonists coming together to break bread in 1621 just never really happened.
Thank you for that history lesson. You know, I first got to know you when Olivia Michael visited with you just last month for Indigenous Peoples Day.
Yes.
And we shared your story and your desire to preserve Nashville's history on News Channel 5. And I want to bring back that story and let you take a look, and then we'll continue more of this conversation.
Sounds good.
In between the hustle and bustle of modern-day Nashville are stories of an ancient past.
This is a Native American sweat lodge. Native American ceremonies are performed, purification ceremonies are performed inside the sweat lodge.
Albert Bender is a Cherokee activist.
And this is a recreation of an ancient Native American medicine wheel.
His ancestors date back thousands of years in Tennessee.
So far as I know, this is the only ceremonial ground in the Middle Tennessee area that is used on a regular basis.
He says today's city was built atop a much different one.
Yeah.
At one point, Nashville was the largest Native American city in the U.S.
And the population of ancient Nashville 1,000 years ago was estimated to be about 400,000.
But in a city now consumed by cranes and excavators, he worries about preserving the past.
I'm concerned that there's the distinct possibility of an erasure of the past, an erasure of the history of ancient Nashville.
Despite the atrocities his ancestors faced, Bender has made it his mission to keep their rich history and culture alive.
It lets the public know that the presence of indigenous people is alive and strong.
He's happy to do it this Indigenous Peoples Day and every day of the year.
I wanted to play that. I think it just gives us a good springboard to jump into more of our conversation. I want to remind you, this is Open Line. You can go ahead and give us a call, be a part of it, 615-737-PLUS. But I do want to talk specifically about Middle Tennessee and give me a little history about indigenous people here.
Well, the indigenous history of Middle Tennessee is a very rich one indeed, because 1,000 years ago there was a tremendous, vast city that existed with at least 400,000 inhabitants. And this was, as I said, 1,000 years ago. And in fact, all of downtown Nashville sits on top of a vast ancient Native American city that extended across the Cumberland River to what's now called East Nashville, rather, and extended for miles and miles into the area of East Nashville. And the ancient, vast city was a regional trading hub. In fact, remains of the vast ancient city were found when the Sounds baseball stadium was being constructed. And during that time, as a part of the excavation, it was found the remains of a vast salt-making industry that produced such prodigious amounts of salt that ancient inhabitants produced the salt and exported it throughout all sections of the southeast. And what were also found were what are contemporarily called salt pans, which were huge pottery vessels that were used for the processing of salt. And the remains of the ancient city and the existence of the ancient city was just stunning and astounding to even myself, and I consider myself as pretty well versed in ancient indigenous history. But the extent of the city and the numbers of inhabitants here was not eclipsed by modern-day Nashville until the year of 1960, when Nashville, modern-day Nashville's population exceeded that of 400,000.
Wow, that really does put it into terms when you think about it that way. It wasn't until 1960 that population number was met. What is the community like now?
Well, the Native American community now is composed of several thousand people from various parts of the United States, and also, of course, those of us whose ancestors lived here aboriginally, but it's a very large, I'd say, a very vibrant and thriving population, and you see us mostly get together at powwows that are held in the late summer and early fall.
I want to talk more about that, but we do have to sneak in a commercial break, so we're going to do that real quickly, and when we come back, more of our conversation. Stick around.